Tonight at 9 p.m. on ESPN, Summer League action underway from Salt Lake City, the Sixers and the Jazz. NBA front office insider Bobby Marks is with us once again. He's been a regular here lately. Bobby, who are three players that we should keep an eye on in Salt Lake City Summer League? Starting with a guy that Danny Ainge was determined to draft, who did show up after all.
Yeah, that's Ace Bailey, the Rutgers forward, the fifth pick in the draft. And certainly we're going to have our eyes on Ace in Utah here. I think the interesting thing for me with Ace is, does Utah play him more at point guard here? Here's a player that averaged 2 turnovers last year at Rutgers, only 1.3 assists. And as you know, Hannah, Summer League is about experimenting. VJ Edgecombe is the next player, the third overall pick in the draft. The 76ers guard is probably the most athletic player in this year's draft, 2.1 assists last year at Baylor. Another player who is going to probably experiment, a little bit upside. A tendency is probably to rely more about getting to the basket. We'll see as far as how his mid-range game is in Utah. And then the third player here, America is going to get introduced to Nikola Topic, the 12th pick in the 2024 draft, courtesy of, guess what, the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? We haven't seen Topic in a year. He's been recovering from an ACL injury. I talked to one scout. They said if he was in this year's draft, he could potentially have been a top 5 pick.
Wow. And this is a guy that turns 20 in August, just another addition to that young roster. Very interesting. All right, let's pivot, if we can, to the available veteran free agents. You've been on that all week long. What's the latest on where Chris Paul and Al Horford might land? And if you could start with CP3.
Yeah, it's funny. We just talked about the youth in the draft. Now we're talking to more of about the seasoned veterans here in free agency. Certainly Chris Paul, the 40-year-old, 82 games last year, 82 starts. I would keep an eye on 2 teams here, Hannah. The Milwaukee Bucks, certainly with the loss of Damian Lillard, and his former team, the Phoenix Suns. 2 fits as far as where Chris Paul could eventually wind up. Al Horford is a little bit more interesting here. A team like Golden State, who lacks front court depth with Horford here, 39, has averaged at least 6 rebounds in every season here. A lot of what happens with Horford in Golden State is dependent on Jonathan Kuminga, the restricted free agent who still is unsigned. But hopefully by the end of next week, both those players will have a new home. I
love the idea of Horford with the Warriors. Yeah, that's really interesting way to round out that roster. Finally, you know, we're doing 50 states in 50 days, and we're in Missouri today. So what about the future of a St. Louis native? Let's talk about Bradley Beal, signed for 2 more years there in Phoenix, 2nd year as a player option, also has a no-trade clause. So what's the latest on his future with them?
Yeah, Bradley Beal owed $111 million over the next 2 years. Of course, Phoenix tried to move him at the deadline. That no-trade clause did become a hindrance here. Hannah, I think we're looking at a breakup between both Beal and the Phoenix Suns. And similar to what we saw with Damian Lillard, people are going to get used to that waiver and stretch provision here. If you look at it for Beal, a potential $20 million cap hit in Phoenix. Remember, this is a team that's been buried in the luxury tax, have been buried in the second apron. By reducing that Beal number, they get out of both of those numbers, could save them potentially $200 million.
Wow, and talk about a return on investment. If you look back at the last 6 seasons for Bradley Beal, he's never played more than 60 games. Bobby Marks, we appreciate you. As always, thanks. NBA,